Hello, hello. Well, hey everyone, we don't want Pop Quiz 2. That's not the right graphic. That's okay. We can go with Pop Quiz number 1. We can start there. Welcome everyone to another Playground Sessions live stream. I'm Phil, and thank you for joining. Today we're checking in with another holiday medley lesson. For those who don't know, we're in the smack dab in the middle of a holiday challenge right now, where we're asking all of our students, just like you, to come into the interactive app, work through an arrangement of, why did I just think somewhere over the rainbow? The holiday medley, an arrangement of the holiday medley that we've put together for all levels, and we're releasing lessons daily. It's super fun. I wanted to have this live session be a check-in for that experience. So I really want to hear some questions today about the holiday medley. I want to hear your story about your practicing, if you've hit any difficult spots, if there is a certain thing about it that's especially challenging. Let's go over that today. But since Pop Quiz 1 is on the screen, and by the way, Aiden's not in tonight, so it's just me behind the camera and in front of the camera. But we're going to get started with a pop quiz today. Who wants to earn some song credits? The question is not going to be about Christmas emojis. Sorry, everyone. I know you guys would all probably ace that quiz. I would like to ask a question about the holiday medley, loosely about the holiday medley. And here's what I'm going to ask. The key signature that we see for Jingle Bells is 1 flat. My question is, what note is flat in that key signature? First correct answer gets it. The question is, what note is automatically flat in the key signature that has 1 flat? Joy to the World in our holiday medley is not in that key, but when we get to song number 2, Jingle Bells, we have a key change, and the key signature then says 1 flat. So the question is not what key is that key signature. The question is, what note is automatically flat when you see that key signature? And I'm just going to play for a second while I let you guys type in those answers. I'll play something in that key, actually. Oh man, I'm seeing a ton of answers coming through in the chat. That always makes me happy. I'm seeing a lot of B's. The correct answer here would be B. That's correct. If you see a key signature of 1 flat, that always is going to be a B flat. You can't see a key signature with 1 flat with a different flat. Always you're going to see a B flat. And that's true for any flat key. If you're in the key of E flat or A flat, B's are also automatically flat. In the key where there is 1 flat only, it is B flat. So congratulations to everyone that wrote B. I'm going to go ahead and give this correct. I'm going to give a free song credit to the first 3 correct winners. And that to me looks like Jeremy Shilley, Robert Atkins, and Joanna Larias. Sorry if I've mispronounced your name, but you guys are the winners. So email support@playgroundsessions.com. Say, Dear Andrew, I won a free song credit in the YouTube live lesson. All right, guys. I think I see a question or two here. So, yeah. How about this? We're going to move on, and I'm going to get to the chat here. Let's see. Well, here's a quick question, a support-related question. Team Dixon says, is anyone having trouble with the connection to Playground Sessions, to the app? It won't connect to my Yamaha digital piano. I have had this for years. I sent a question to support, but no reply. Team Dixon, first what I would say is make sure that you get your message in before 6 p.m. I believe that's kind of when the cutoff time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, for responses for your message that same day. Also, sometimes I know that our support team responses can sometimes accidentally go to a spam folder. So make sure you're checking there as well, and make sure that you're not seeing us in there. But I'll pass this message over to Andrew as well. And yeah, oh, actually, yeah, if you're comfortable putting your email address in the chat, maybe they won't even let you, actually. But either way, Andrew will make sure that we get to your message tomorrow, if not, if it hasn't already been responded to. Okay, let's get to a question about the medley here. Linda Tublitz asks, Linda says, Phil, I need help speeding up. I'm doing great at slower speeds, but hitting 92 is really hard. All right, so this is one of those things where, unfortunately, there is not a shortcut that you can kind of apply, and now you can just speed up. This is one of those things that you may need to take time gradually to increase your speed. To go from one day and say, oh, I'm practicing it at 70 or whatever the tempo is at slow speed. Oh, that feels good. Now, 5 minutes later, now I'm going to try it at 92. That is going to be a tough jump, no matter what. And I know that sometimes, in fact, for all these lessons, the way that we structure them is I demo it for you in the slow tempo, then I demo it for you in full speed, and then we're out, right? But in no way is that meant to suggest that that's what you should do in your practicing. Oh, one time slow, one time fast, done. That would not be sufficient practice. And so I want to remind you to take your time in your practice. And sometimes that also means taking your time speeding up your tempos. And so here's how you can do that. If you don't have a metronome outside of the app, you can use the app for this too. There is a little slider bar in your tempo toolbars across the top, your tempo controls in the toolbar. If you click on the clock icon, it'll allow you to drag that tempo or set a custom tempo. And so what I would do is, as I would say to you, Linda, what's your comfy tempo? If at the slow speed, if that feels good, maybe then just increase it by 2 or 4 BPM max. And try it there several times. It might even take a couple of days. And then incrementally increase that tempo until you're doing it at 86, 88, 90, 92. I would also encourage you, Linda, to go past 92 at that point and then come back. 92 will then feel probably a lot easier if you could do it even faster than 92. But the main takeaway here, Linda, is that sometimes you just need to give your hands the proper amount of time to really get stuff into their muscle memory. And often that's why we see people who are continuing to work on our challenges after the daily lessons have all been released. And that's because it's not always practical to stay with each day's practice demands without skipping a beat, right? We've got real life to attend to and all that. So I would say be patient and incrementally increase your tempo if going from slow speed to full tempo right away is challenging. All right, so let's move on to another question here. This one is from Robert Atkins. Robert just wrote in, the problem I'm having is the outro. Since I only have 61 keys, I have to transpose it down an octave. Then on the second part, I have to transpose back up. How do I get around that? So I think what you're saying, Robert, is in the melody, when things go up an octave, you actually have to hit the transpose button on your keyboard. And then when it goes back down the octave, you have to transpose it back down.
The challenge shouldn't be outside of that range.
Yeah, I guess, Robert, what Andrew and I are discussing is, you know, well, first of all, what level are you doing? Because even at the advanced level, Robert, I think everything is contained within a 61-key keyboard.
It would be C2 to C6. So
yeah.
Below the bass, above the treble. You know,
yeah.
pretty wide range.
We're at that C above the treble in the arrangement. So I guess I would want to get a little more information because I want to say, Robert, I could be wrong, I think we arranged it in a way where all the notes fit within 61 keys. So I want to get to the bottom of that. What level are you looking at? In the meantime, I want to move on here. I see John Sandlin. I'll come back to you though, Robert. John Sandlin says, I'm at the end of Jingle Bells, working toward 92 as of today. So you're at least a week behind. Thanks for letting us know, John. That's totally fine. As long as, of course, we can get you playing this thing before Christmas, I hope. Obviously, the music is still good in January and beyond, but we all kind of lose that spirit after the holidays, and so we want to make sure you can be playing, before that holiday spirit is starting to vanish. We all know how it is. So, yeah, I think John's got the right idea. If you guys need to spend a little extra time before moving to the next lesson, please do it. Don't feel pressure to keep up with the daily releases on those days if you're still working through the challenge from the day before, for example. All right, so Robert is saying that he's doing advanced. I wonder if you know what? I might pull it up on my end really quickly, just briefly. I do have the app on my laptop here, so I'm going to pull that up, and I'm going to get to the bottom of that, Robert. You're saying in the outro that you have to transpose it down, and then on the second part you have to go back up. So I'm going to take a peek into that. Pardon me. Because that's what this lesson's all about today, is answering your guys' questions about this holiday medley. So the outro lesson for advanced. I am opening it right now. It looks like our highest note in the outro, pardon me. It looks like we've got an A up here. I think it's this B flat. Maybe we do go up to the high C. Yeah, so our highest note in the outro, I think, is right up here. This C right there. And the lowest note should be this C. No, this A, excuse me. So that's our range there.
That's why.
2, 3. That's a 4 octave plus 1.
The A1 is too low.
Oh, your keyboard must cut off down here at
61 cuts off at C2.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. So I guess, Robert, what the easiest thing to do would be on that part where you drop down an octave. So you're here. Instead of doing that, you could lose the bottom note when you go down to the A. And if you have a B flat down here, you can add it there too. Now, unfortunately, the app is going to grade you with that low note as a red note. So if you're looking for 100%, you may have to try it on a keyboard that's got 62 keys, unfortunately. But I would say if you're playing this and performing it and you want to showcase it, it would sound fine to do it without that low note. I believe at that point we have this. So that's what that outro advanced section would be, with the left hand just doing single notes for those low notes. Sorry, Robert, but I hope that you can get around it with those tips. All right, let me get back to my chat here. John saying, Joy to the World really put him behind. Spent a lot of time. John, I'm curious, why? What do you think about Joy to the World put you behind? Was it the tempo? And let me know in the chat, all of you out there, are people feeling like the tempo being kind of fast or really fast, depending on how you feel about it? Do you think that is contributing to this being a more challenging arrangement? Or is it something else? Robert's saying, I guess as far as the challenge goes, I just do 1 or 2 songs and not the outro. Robert's got a good point, you guys, here. One of the reasons that we decided to do multiple songs within this medley is that we wanted to give people the option, in case you didn't have the time or the energy or whatever to learn the entire challenge worth of arrangement, that you could have some outs built in. You learn the first song, you could call it a day there. Or you could do Joy to the World and Jingle Bells and then call it a day there. Or you could do all 3 and no outro. And so really, there are a few ways that you can jump into this holiday challenge. And even if you can't fully complete it, hopefully you can still feel good about it, at least a song portion. Yeah. Yep, Joanna is saying the tempo does seem fast. Barb Smith saying the tempo definitely feels fast. Yep, Team Dixon agrees. Yeah, it's funny. When we were arranging this, the tempo came up as a part of the debate, and we were talking about wanting to keep it feeling really joyful and upbeat and happy. And often that kind of translates into tempo, but of course that also adds extra work to build up your tempo, as I was mentioning to Linda earlier. Sometimes it takes time to build up your speed. Yep. Lynn's saying the tempo does feel challenging, but to be fair, Lynn is a rookie trying intermediate. So it's your first time with so many chords. Lynn, that's awesome. Congrats. That's super cool. I love when people try and test their comfort zones and push a bit further into the unknown. So how are you going with the chords? Are you feeling like there's anything in particular that's challenging? Is it the inversions? Is it sometimes when you have a black key with your thumb, that can be a challenge? How's your experience overall as a rookie trying intermediate? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Is it motivating you? Is it scary? What do you think? Yeah, and Joanna's saying that the tempo seems faster than she or he or she remembers the songs to be. And that's actually an interesting point. This is our own arrangement of these songs. It's our medley. And so we've taken each of these themes that everyone knows and we've arranged them for different levels. We've also decided things like tempo and when do we want to move to the next theme, or when do we want to call back the theme in the outro, and including tempo. So we also discussed tempo and we set the tempo. Now, if someone's played this at 82 BPM instead of 92 BPM, would that be quote unquote wrong? I don't think it would be wrong. Now, it may not sound good with the 92 BPM backing track, but if you were playing this on your piano, or if you just wanted to turn off the backing track and just play it, there's no one right tempo and all the other tempos are wrong. I would say that there's a range of tempos where this arrangement would sound really good, and you don't have to feel the pressure to explicitly learn it at 92 BPM. However, I will say that if you want to try and participate in our closing recital video, which we do want to showcase any of you who submit video performances, even of just sections of this, doesn't have to be the whole arrangement. If you do want to participate in that video and have the chance for your video to be featured, you do need to submit it at full tempo, and that is going to be 92. But I don't want to discourage you guys. This song will still sound great at a slower tempo. All right, now Lynn is saying it is the black keys that challenge you with the chords. So Lynn, just a quick tip. I may have mentioned this in the video, but I'll say it again here. Whenever you're playing a chord that involves a thumb, which if you look at it like this, your thumb is your shortest finger, right? It stands up only about halfway up to the back of the keys. If you're playing a chord that involves some of these fingers and your thumb, you're going to have to bend in some weird ways sometimes to reach. And we want to avoid weird bends and weird angles like this. Instead, what we want to do is stretch our hand to the back. We want to slide back this way so that our thumb can reach the height of these black keys. And then we're going to curl these fingers a little bit more so we can reach everything comfortably. Notice I'm not bent like this or like this. I'm just right. Cool. Well, kudos, Lynn. Kudos for trying something difficult. Yep. Okay. I'm just reading the chat here. John Anderson saying, changing chord shapes using different fingering with the same chord. Changing chord shapes using different fingering with the same chord. Yeah, there's all sorts of weird stuff like that. Sometimes you'll be playing a chord and then you need to change one note of that chord, for example, but you've got to change other fingers. And that can be a little bit confusing as well. But all that stuff is for a reason. I want to remind you guys, when you see something that looks a little iffy in the fingering suggestions, I promise there's typically always going to be a good reason for it. And that reason is usually about setting yourself up for the next position. So if you see something weird like putting your 1 here, Well, you can bet that the reason you do that is so that your hand can then reach up to here. And finally, you can play the top of the phrase. So if you trust in the process, by the end you'll see, that's why they wanted me to move my finger, for example. Lynn is saying that that was a useful tip, and that in general, Lynn lacks strength in the pinky area. Lynn, you and most of us here, including myself, that's just how it goes. And so by nature, we typically want to overcompensate for our pinkies by bending this way and having these three fingers kind of do extra work, only using the pinky and our ring finger for that matter when we have to. But I would say when we can, if we can try and correct that and use these fingers more, you're going to end up having a better angle with your wrist as you approach the keyboard anyways. So try and do that. You're going to feel better in your wrist, and you're not going to feel as tense in your forearms. And you're also going to get extra work on those weaker fingers. Robert Atkins is saying, for me, it's not that I can't play it, but more or less it just feels weird to go from the F to B flat in Jingle Bells. I don't feel like I'm playing a chord. It feels sort of disconnected. So Robert, in the I'm assuming I think you said earlier you were doing the advanced version. It feels weird to go from the F to the B flat in Jingle Bells, so maybe you're talking about this. Was that what you were talking about there? Here we have a closed position in the left hand to start. And then all of a sudden, we have that jump right there, right? I'm guessing that's what you're talking about because that is kind of challenging. That took some time to practice, right? I'm sure it did for you guys as well. It did for me. And that's because there were a few things I had to work on. I had to work on this not being so staccato and loud, right? Because I want to jump to get to that B flat in time. I wanted to do this, right? Well, I should say my hand wanted to do that, but I was trying to fight against that. So how do you do that? Well, you have to anticipate it. You have to think about that as wanting to be louder so you can actively try and play it quieter, like this. So you do that, you play it softer, and then you've just got to move quicker over here. Soft first, then move. And then the last thing I want to do in that move is practice landing on the B flat also quietly. Okay, because it would be very tempting for us to do this. Right? And accidentally land too heavily on the B flat. Yeah, okay, I see you, Robert. Yeah, that's the area you're talking about. So the challenge here is just going to be getting there without really jamming down on it like that. And I practice it by playing it nice and quiet. And Robert, we're landing on a B flat note on its own, and maybe that's also what's throwing you off about that, is it doesn't really feel full in that moment, in that beat of that measure. We have this. And if you just pause right there, I would agree. I would say, sure, it sounds a little thin there, a little bit harmonically empty. But I would say the same thing about the very first part of Jingle Bells. If you just isolate that beat, all you would have is this. Right? But the reason that this sounds a little more full than this is, well, it's obvious, right? We have two different notes in the first one. Here we're just playing two B flats. But still, you need to think about the harmony in the full measure. This is actually the harmony. Just like this is the harmony in the beginning. But we're rhythmicizing that harmony by delaying some of those notes. But you put it all together, and it's that harmony. So the same thing goes here. That's it. Yeah, so the harmony is... Thank you. There's no third in the left hand there either, though. I'm trying to remember the exact voicing. So what you need to do is just trying to hear the whole measure and you're going to get the harmony there. But Robert, also remember, the style in this particular part of the arrangement is kind of that light and bouncy style. And because of that, we actually don't really want a ton of lush chords. Instead, what we want is that rhythmic feeling of bass chord, which adds to that bounciness and that liveliness. So we might even do this if it was more advanced. Right, so you can defer it with that extra kind of bouncy stride feel. And that's what we're hinting at with this kind of rhythmic pattern in the left hand. So yeah, there you go. Let's keep moving. I got a question here from Linda. Hey Linda, here's another one from Linda. Linda says, question about hark intermediate. Why do you play only a C when the notation is F over C? When I get to a future lesson, will I end up playing F over C? Linda, give me an exact measure number if you wouldn't mind. I can think of hark. I think that's, you're talking about the first chord, right? F over C. So you're asking, why do you only play a C when the notation is F over C? I assume you're asking about the C in the right hand, but because the harmony, I believe, is a block chord at that point. So there's our F over C chord, and that's what we should be starting with there. And that chord symbol in the notation is referring to that left hand. And the right hand then plays a melody on top of that. And that melody happens to outline some notes that work in that chord, but the chord symbol is specifically only referring to the left hand voicing. The right hand doesn't have to hit any certain notes. It just is kind of separate. The harmony, though, is F over C. Linda, let me know the exact measure. I see you said you'll look it up. In the meantime, I'm going to get to a question from Soren. Hey, Soren. Soren says, do you recommend using a sustain pedal for the interval between songs? It depends. So Soren's talking about in the medley, in between the songs, typically we have around 2 measures of rest where we can move our hands into the next position for the next upcoming piece. And Soren's asking if the sustain pedal should be used. So I would say probably not, actually. And that's because specifically what we have in the notation are rests. Rests don't just mean, do whatever you want here. Rests specifically mean don't play anything. There should be nothing coming from your instrument. And so if you sustain through that, and I'm sustaining, well, I'm not actually resting, right? So when you see a rest, you want to be true to that rest. Now, having said that, there is a spot in Jingle Bells. There's a few spots where we jump around at intermediate and at the advanced level, where I do use the sustain pedal to get me from point A to point B. But then I release the pedal right away, and I'm not sustaining through it. I think that is right around here. And then we jump up to there. So when I do that, I go pedal, move, lift pedal. Actually, left hand doesn't move, but you get the idea. Pedal, lift, move, pedal, move, and now lift the pedal. So that's the idea there, Soren. I would use it as a tool to change range quickly, and not as a tool to glue the songs together with sound. You're welcome. All right. Okay, I'm going to get back to Linda's question here.
I found what she was talking about.
Oh, measure 55 intermediate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's pull that up here. And what lesson would that be for hark? I'll just go to the full hark.
I'm on lesson 15.
15. Okay, cool.
8.
Thank you. Stand by here, guys. I'm just pulling it up on my end. And, segment 8. And what measure? 55?
Yeah.
All the way at the bottom? Almost?
Near the bottom, yeah.
Ah. Okay. I now understand. We're looking at a measure 55, and that part is this. So I'll back it up a little bit here at measure 53. And the chord in question is right here. This right here. There is only one note in the left-hand voicing here. Intermediate, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, measure 55. Why is there a chord symbol that says F over C if we're just playing a C in the left hand? And furthermore, there is no actual F being played here, right? So what is this? Well, you're right to ask. It's a good question. This, on its own, as a two-note voicing, is incomplete. But there's an implied harmony here. That F is implied. Here's an A, here's a C. If we had an F in here, it's implied. And that harmony is F over C. And we say that in particular because there is a C in the bass. It's written as a C chord, and an F over C. If we were going to play that as more of a full chord, absolutely we would play it as F over C. But our arranging team decided that it would be a nice change here to have a single note just for that beat. And it's not right or wrong, it's just a choice. So we have and literally just looking at those two notes, you'd be right. You would say, that doesn't look like an F over C. It just looks like a C and an A in the right hand. But just those two notes on their own are not really enough to tell you what this harmony is. The harmony is indicated by that chord symbol F over C. We just happen to not be voicing that F note in that moment. Hope that didn't add to your confusion. Hopefully that cleared it up. Okay, Lynn Stewart asks, what could you play between the sections to link them if you didn't have access to the backing track? Okay, fair question. If you didn't have the backing track to carry you through those two measures of rest, what could you do instead? Well, I guess if you're going to make changes to the arrangement, you could do whatever you want, right? And because at that point, you're making it your own, and that's cool. I'm always down for that. But what I would say is if you were really asking what are some things you could do, you could try a handful of things. You could try playing what you just played to end it again in that rest, and then go into the next song. So for example, instead of just resting for two measures and then going down here, you could do this. So you could just kind of extend what you did before, or you could preemptively hint at what's coming next. So that's another option too. You could do the same thing but add some rhythm. Or you could still just rest. That's okay too. Hey, Frank L. Frank L says, out of curiosity, why do most sheet music arrangers put the chord names at the top above the melody line? I like the way Playground Sessions puts them below the bass clef. Frank, the reason that we do that, the reason that you often see chord symbols written above a melody, I would venture to say that if you see that, typically you also are not seeing a bass clef, a bass staff, with notated chords as well. You may most likely be seeing just a treble staff with a melody and then a chord symbol written above. You might still see some chords notated out sometimes in a bass staff, but either way, the chord symbol is meant to be a shorthand way of referring to the harmony so you could fill in your own left-hand harmony. And that kind of notation is referred to as a lead sheet. You have a melody on a treble staff, and then you have chord symbols typically written above that you're supposed to read and fill in on your end in the left hand. So the reason that we include the chord symbols is because we think the more information you have, the better, even if we have our own voicings written out in the arrangement. Think about it like we have the finger numbers, the letter numbers, the right-hand notes, the left-hand notes, everything, right? We want the chord symbols. We want to give you all the tools that we can to help you guys learn. But because we also include the left-hand written parts in our arrangements, we decided to put the chord symbols closer to the left-hand chords, hence why we have them in the bass clef. But Frank, yeah, what you're asking about, typically that's because people want to do a short, quick version of it, sketch out the melody, write a couple chord symbols, boom, call it a day. And there's nothing wrong with that either. It depends on what your goal is. Again, we at Playground, we want to give you guys all the tools. That means chord symbol in case you want to make up your own harmony, and actual chord voicings voiced out in notation in case you want to learn the chord and notation. All right, here's Soren. A video about pedaling. Soren's asking if there's a video about pedaling. You know, I believe there is a pedal lesson in our boot camp, but I don't think that we did a specific pedal lesson for this challenge. We're going to follow up with you on that. In the meantime, I'll get to your next question. What was the reasoning behind choosing these particular sections of these songs? If we were to add one more song, which section shall we add? You know what, Soren, there are a few things that went into this decision. Part of it was timing. You know, we could have obviously picked 10 or more songs to put into an epic medley, but it would be June 2021, and we'd still be working on it. That's definitely a deciding factor a lot of the times with what we decide to produce. And that's probably true for everyone in their lives, right? You want to do something, but you only have so many minutes and hours in the day. And so what we did was we decided what's the most ambitious holiday medley we could come up with that is still reasonably doable in the time frame that we had between then and Christmas. And we felt like this was the right balance. In terms of which songs we chose and why, again, I mentioned earlier, we wanted to keep a really happy, joyful energy. So some of my favorite Christmas songs personally are like,
Jazz ones.
yeah, but even like the slow tempo jazz ones. And that is not a depressed mood, but it certainly isn't an upbeat, joyful mood. It's more of like a laid back, kind of jazzy, nighttime mood, whatever. And so we wanted to keep this really uplifting and joyful, and Joy to the World, clearly a good candidate for that. Jingle Bells is also one of the most upbeat, kind of happy, positive, bouncy, lively. And then we wanted to throw in a sweeter one too. And then the outro is sort of pulling from the different themes. You know, we could do 10 different holiday arrangements over the next 10 Christmases, and they'd all be different, and that'd be pretty cool. So we just kind of had to go with it, and we did it. So we're glad to see you guys enjoying it. I'm just going to take another question or two, and then I'm going to let you guys get back to practicing. Hey, Lily Mae, you're going to catch up later. That's cool. She says, I think all the songs really complement each other in the medley. Oh, our arranging team would be happy to hear that. They spent a good amount of time making sure everything worked well together. That's pretty cool. Lily, I hope you had fun learning it. I think I remember seeing, did you start working on it late? I don't remember. Maybe that was someone else last week. But if so, or either way, tell us about your progress with it. I know we all love to watch your progress in your videos that you share. Thank you, Robert Atkins. That's what I was thinking of. So Soren asked about a pedaling lesson, or at least some tips on pedaling. I couldn't remember if I did it in the course or not, but I did do one within the Prelude in C Bach challenge. Part of that is because that song is so classic with the pedal. And it's funny, I learned this actually when we did the challenge, that Bach's piano at the time when he composed it didn't really even have the sustain pedal like we have now. But still, that piece, even though it was written back then, it sounds so good with the sustain pedal. So it's kind of a classic example. So we did do a lesson there, and I hope, Soren, if you are new to the app or if you didn't check out that Prelude in C challenge for whatever reason, I hope you'll dig into that too. There's a lot of great stuff in there, and just because we're not releasing them live anymore doesn't mean that there's not lessons there for you. Lily May started last week. Sweet. How far are you, Lily May? And by the way, do you like Lily May or Lily or something else? I don't know if your guys' screen names are what you actually want me to call you. But until I hear differently, you'll be Lily May. But that's awesome. I'm glad you started late. Better late than never. Hopefully you can get it together in time for the season to still be jumping. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to leave you on something here. I'm going to play for a minute or two and see if there's any last questions, and I'll get to that question. But I'm going to play a little bit of each of the three pieces from this medley, just in my own kind of improvised way. So for the last question, we're going to get into a question about pedaling. Fair enough. So this one's from Linda. Linda says, can you talk about pedaling in Hark the Herald Angels Sing? Yes, I can. And Linda, I believe you said you were intermediate. So I don't have the arrangement in front of me, but I believe I have it pretty much memorized by now. And pedaling for Hark. Hark is the one that I would use the pedal most often for here. And that's mostly because it's sort of a sweeter, softer feel, but also because the harmony changes a bit less, at least in the first half. And so here's what I would do for Hark. I'll play first and then I'll walk through. Okay, so what I'm trying not to do with the pedal is blur the melody. Otherwise, I want to use the pedal. That's kind of my thinking, my approach here. I want to use the pedal until I might be blurring the melody. Then I want to release it, okay? And so let me show you what it would sound like if I was blurring that melody. Especially when you see notes that are half steps apart. Any close intervals like that, you're really going to hear them stick out if you use your sustain pedal. So instead, what I would do is I would discreetly and quickly lift my pedal and push it back down when I get to that part, like this. Sorry, I messed up. So you notice the sound doesn't all go away. That's because I'm still actually holding my notes down in the left hand. And that's important too. The sustain pedal down doesn't mean your fingers have to be up. You can still play your chord. And that way when you lift up the pedal, like I just did, well, your chord can still be ringing. So pedal up, chord still down, pedal back down. And even there, I might not want to blur those two. Definitely picking it up here and pushing it back down, because otherwise what we would get is this. Way too muddy. It's hard to even hear where those two chords are, right? So I would say, in general with this medley, just use the pedal sparingly. In Joy to the World, I would use it. Excuse me, not Joy to the World. In Hark the Herald Angels Sing, I would use it. But my main tip here, my main takeaway for you would be listen to that melody as it's coming out of your instrument and try not to blur it together with other melody notes. We want it to be singing clearly and not muddied up. That's my general rule. Okay, guys, well, let's leave it there for the day. I'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place.